The battlefield silence. The air was heavy with smoke. The ground was cracked and blackened from hours of bombing. Captain Aaron Vey moved slowly between the twisted remains of machines, keeping his rifle ready. The war between the Galactic Coalition and Earth had ended only a few hours ago, but the battlefield was still alive with danger. Shadows moved in the distance, and every sound echoed like a warning. Aaron had been searching for survivors. Most of his team had already left to regroup at the extraction point, but something told him to keep going. The orders were clear. Secure the area, leave no one alive from the enemy side. But Aaron's heart never worked that way. He had seen enough blood to last a lifetime. Then, through the hissing smoke, he heard it. A sound too faint to be metal breaking, too soft to be a dying machine. It was a breath, sharp and trembling. Aaron stopped, listening. There it was again. A gasp, followed by a low, almost painful exhale. He followed the sound and found her. Half buried under a collapsed section of steel plating lay a figure in silver armor. The surface cracked and scorched from blasts. Her helmet was shattered on one side, revealing part of her face, alien but striking, skin pale with a faint glow, eyes half closed but still fierce. Blood seeped from under the chest plates where jagged metal pressed into her. Aaron hesitated. She was the enemy. The war had been brutal, and many of his friends had died because of soldiers like her, but she was alive, barely, and the sight of her struggling for breath made something inside him move. He stepped closer, crouching beside her. "Don't," she rasped, her voice sharp despite the weakness. Her hand twitched toward a broken weapon lying beside her, but she couldn't lift it. Aaron set his rifle down slowly, raising both hands to show he wasn't about to kill her. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said quietly. Her eyes narrowed. "You, human. Finish it," she whispered. Her words strained. Aaron shook his head. "Not today." He began pulling away the heavy steel plate, his muscles straining against its weight. It slid off with a screech, revealing the rest of her armor, broken in several places, shards biting into her skin. When he tried to lift her, she gasped in pain. "Stop. Don't. The armor stays," she said through clenched teeth. Aaron frowned. "It's killing you," he said. Her voice came weaker this time. "You can't touch me." Aaron looked around. The smoke was thinning, and distant footsteps were getting closer. If he stayed here, they'd both be found. "Sorry, but I'm not asking," he muttered, sliding his arms under her. She was lighter than he expected, but the armor made it hard to hold her without pressing on the injuries. Her head fell against his shoulder, her breathing shallow but steady. As he carried her, Aaron's mind raced. This was against protocol. Bringing an enemy officer alive could lead to trouble, but leaving her here didn't feel right. He kept moving, stepping over wreckage, heading for cover. Behind them, the sound of voices grew louder. Alien words shouted through the haze, orders to search. Aaron ducked into the shadow of a burnout troop carrier, lowering her to the ground. Her eyes fluttered open. "Why? Help me?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Aaron didn't answer right away. He started checking the damage on her armor, looking for a way to free her without making her injuries worse, because the truth was, he didn't have an answer he could explain. Only that he couldn't watch her die. He found the locking mechanism on the shoulder plate. It was bent and jammed. He pulled a small tool from his belt and began working on it. Her gaze stayed fixed on him, suspicious but fading with exhaustion. When the plate loosened, she winced but didn't stop him. A moment later, the sound of boots crunching on debris echoed close by. Aaron froze, one hand on the armor. If they were found now, there would be no way to fight and keep her alive. Her fingers gripped his sleeve weakly. "Leave me. Go," she whispered. Aaron shook his head, his voice firm but quiet. "Not happening." And in that smoke-filled silence, as danger closed in around them, he made the choice that would change everything. "Enemy in my arms." Aaron could hear the patrol's voices now, clearer than before. They were moving in a sweeping pattern, searching the wreckage. If they found him with her, they would shoot on sight, no questions. He needed to move, and fast. Her eyes were still half open, glowing faintly in the dim light. She was watching him, not with fear, but with a strange mix of defiance and curiosity. When he slid his arms under her again, She gave a sharp breath. Don't. Take it off, she murmured, her voice shaking. Aaron didn't answer. He just lifted her to her feet, supporting her weight as best he could. The broken armor made it awkward, scraping against his own combat suit. Each step they took left small trails of blood on the cracked ground. They slipped out of the ruined troop carrier and into the narrow path between two collapsed towers. The smoke there was thicker, hiding them from sight. Aaron could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. Her breathing was shallow, but she didn't complain. Every time he looked at her face, he saw the fight in her eyes, even though her body was failing. A beam of light suddenly swept across the rubble ahead. They froze, pressed against a wall of scorched metal. Aaron tightened his grip on her, keeping her close so the shadows swallowed them both. The patrol moved past, unaware. Only when the sound of boots faded did he move again. Her voice broke the silence. You know my name? She asked weakly. Aaron glanced down at the cracked ID tag hanging from her chest plate. Commander Lysara Veln, he said softly, her yes flickered at the sound of her full name. You say it like it matters, she whispered, almost as if confused. They reached a half-collapsed walkway. Aaron guided her onto it carefully, each step creaking under their weight. One wrong move and they could fall into the dark pit below. Halfway across, her legs buckled. Aaron caught her before she could fall, pulling her against him. I've got you, he said firmly, her gaze locked on his. And for a moment, the war seemed far away. When they finally made it across, Aaron spotted a safer place ahead. A burnt-out dropship lying on its side. It was big enough to hide in, and the shadows inside would cover them. He helped her inside, lowering her gently to the floor. The dim light inside caught on the sharp edges of her broken armor. Some pieces were fused to her skin where heat and shrapnel had bitten deep. She winced when she moved. Aaron crouched beside her, studying the damage. You'll die if I leave this on, he said quietly. Her lips curved in a faint, bitter smile. Better that than be stripped like a trophy, she whispered. Aaron shook his head. That's not what I'm doing. He reached for the locking mechanism on her shoulder plate again. This time she didn't resist, but her eyes never left his face. The metal groaned as it came loose. One plate slid away, revealing skin beneath, pale, marked by bruises and blood, but untouched by cruelty. Her voice came again, softer this time. You're different, she said, almost as if speaking to herself. Aaron kept working, removing each shattered piece with care. Outside, the sound of the patrols drifted away. Inside, it was only the two of them. One human soldier, one alien commander, bound by a fragile, unspoken moment. When the last plate fell, she closed her eyes and exhaled slowly, her lips moved, barely audible. No one has ever undressed me gently. Aaron froze. In the words lingering in the quiet like something too personal to belong in the middle of a battlefield. But before he could reply, the distant thud of explosions rattled the dropship walls. The war wasn't done with them yet, a whisper in the dark. The dropship's interior was cold and smelled of burnt metal. Faint light from a shattered panel cast long shadows across the walls. Aaron sat on one knee beside Lysara, listening to her breathing. It was uneven, like she was holding back pain. Every few seconds, the hull creaked as the wind outside shifted through the wreckage. He knew they couldn't stay here long. The patrols would double back once they finished their sweep, but moving her again in this condition could kill her. He scanned the corners of the dropship for movement. Nothing, only silence. Still, his grip stayed on his rifle, ready. Lysara opened her eyes slowly. They glowed faintly in the half-dark. A soft silver light against the blackened interior. Her gaze shifted to him, studying his face as though she was searching for something. You're not like the others, she whispered, her voice low and careful. Aaron didn't answer right away. He kept checking the damage where the armor had been. Her skin was marked by deep bruises, cuts, and burns. Some wounds were fresh, others older. Signs of battles long before this one. You could have left me there, she continued, her voice steadying. I should have, he said quietly, tightening a strip of cloth to stop one of her deeper cuts. But I didn't. For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the broken panel above them. Then Lysara's gaze softened. On my world, armor is everything, she said. It is protection, identity, pride, and prison. Her eyes flicked to the shattered pieces lying on the floor beside them. You take it from me, and I am nothing. Aaron's hands paused. That's not what I see, he said. You're still here, still breathing, and that's more than most on this field. Her lips curved faintly, not quite a smile. You don't understand, she murmured. In my culture, no one touches the armor unless it's in combat or in... She hesitated, her voice almost breaking. Or in intimacy. Aaron didn't move. He hadn't thought about it that way. To him, it was just a matter of saving her life. But to her, what he had done carried a weight far beyond survival. When the next words came from her lips, they were so soft he almost missed them. No one has ever undressed me gently. They weren't filled with accusation or even shame. They were simply true. And something in the way she said them made his chest tighten. Before he could speak, a sudden metallic thud came from outside, boots on the hull. Aaron's hand went to his rifle instantly. Lysara's eyes widened, and she reached weakly for a broken sidearm lying on the floor. The shadows in the doorway shifted as a figure passed. A patrol soldier scanning the area. Aaron held his breath, motioning for her to stay still. The soldier's light beam swept across the entrance, lingered for a moment, then moved away. A few tense seconds later, the sound faded into the distance. Aaron exhaled slowly. He looked at Lysara, who was still holding the broken weapon in her trembling hand. You're not going to survive if we stay here, he said. She nodded faintly, though her expression was unreadable. Then we move, she whispered. And just like that, the fragile quiet they had shared was over. The battlefield outside waited for them, ready to take them both. The chase through ruins. The moment they stepped out of the dropship, the cold wind cut against their faces. The smoke outside was thinner now, revealing the jagged skeletons of shattered towers all around. Aaron kept one arm under Lysara's to steady her, the other gripping his rifle tight. Every step they took crunched over glass and debris. She moved stiffly, but her gaze stayed sharp, scanning the ruins like a trained soldier. A sound. It cracked through the air. The sharp, high-pitched whine of a targeting scanner. Aaron froze. A red beam swept across the rubble behind them, catching on a twisted girder before slowly moving their way. He pulled Lysara down into the shadow of a broken wall just as the beam passed over where they had been standing. Shouts followed, in the alien tongue. They had been spotted. A flash of light exploded against the wall above them, showering them with hot fragments. Aaron pushed her forward. Run, he barked. They darted into the narrow remains of a street, the ground littered with broken armor pieces and scorched weapons. Gunfire ripped through the air, striking the walls on either side. Lysara stumbled once, but Aaron caught her by the arm and pulled her upright without slowing. Her breathing was ragged, but her jaw was set, her silver eyes focused ahead. They turned a corner and almost collided with two enemy soldiers. Before Aaron could fire, Lysara moved first, grabbing a jagged metal rod from the ground and striking one in the side of the helmet. The soldier dropped instantly. Aaron shot the second before he could raise his weapon, the crack echoing between the ruins. They didn't stop to check the bodies. More shouts came from behind, closer this time. The path ahead narrowed into a collapsed bridge, half of it gone. Beyond it was a lower level of the city, cloaked in thick shadows. Aaron glanced at Lysara. Can you make the jump? She gave him a faint, almost reckless smile. Only if you come with me. They ran together, boots slamming against the fractured metal. At the edge, Aaron pulled her with him, and they leapt. The ground below rushed up fast. They hit hard, rolling into the dust. Pain flared in Aaron's side, but he ignored it, pulling Lysara to her feet. Above them, enemy soldiers reached the edge of the bridge. Weapons raised, Aaron fired upward, forcing them to retreat out of sight. The lower level was quieter, but not safe. It smelled of damp and oil. The air heavy and still. Lysara leaned against him more now, her strength fading, yet when they passed a pile of broken drones, she still bent to grab a power cell, slipping it into her belt. Aaron noticed but didn't comment. Old habits from a lifetime of war die slow. They reached an archway leading into a dark tunnel. Aaron paused, listening. No footsteps, no voices. He guided her inside, the light fading behind them. Only then did they stop. Both breathing hard, Lysara's hand rested briefly on his arm. You didn't have to stay with me out there, she said quietly. Aaron met her gaze, his voice steady. Yes, I did. In the darkness of that tunnel, it wasn't just the war chasing them anymore. It was the growing truth that neither of them could ignore, shelter and truth. The tunnel curved downward into the remains of an underground transport station. The air was damp, carrying the faint scent of rust and stagnant water. Aaron kept his flashlight beam low, sweeping it across old tracks and collapsed support beams. They were far from safe, but this place would hide them for a while. He guided Lysara toward a corner where a wall had caved in, leaving a small hollow space just big enough for two. She lowered herself slowly to the ground, her breathing heavy. Aaron crouched beside her, pulling a medkit from his pack. Her eyes followed his hands as he worked, wary at first, then softer when she saw his movements were careful. The wounds under her shattered armor were worse than he had thought, deep cuts along her side, purple bruises blooming across her ribs, burns tracing the edges of where the metal had fused to her skin. When he poured disinfectant over one of the cuts, she hissed but didn't pull away. Instead, she looked straight at him. "You treat me like I matter," she said quietly. Aaron's hands didn't pause, but his voice was low. "Because you do us." Oh, for a moment she didn't reply. Her gaze drifted toward the shadows above them. "My people would not understand this," she murmured. "To them, mercy is weakness, and kindness is a lie to trap fools." She turned her head toward him again. "You risk your life for someone who would have killed you hours ago." Aaron met her eyes without flinching. "I've seen enough war to know that who you are now matters more than what side you were on." Her lips curved faintly, but it wasn't quite a smile. "You speak like you've lost people," she said. "I have," he answered simply, tightening the last bandage on her side. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It felt heavy, like both of them were holding back more than they could say. In the dim light, Aaron noticed the smallest tremor in her hands, not from pain but from exhaustion. He reached into his pack, pulling out a canteen. "Drink," he said, holding it out. She hesitated, then took it, her fingers brushing against his. The water touched her lips, and for a moment her expression shifted, as if she was tasting something she hadn't known in years. Then from somewhere deeper in the tunnels came the low mechanical hum of a search drone. Aaron's body tensed instantly. Lysara set the canteen down slowly, her gaze sharpening. "They're close," she whispered. He nodded, already scanning for another exit. If the drone found them, soldiers wouldn't be far behind. Before moving, Aaron picked up a piece of her shattered armor from the ground. He turned it over in his hands. It was scorched, bent, useless for battle. But to her, it had been more than protection. It had been her identity. When he met her gaze, he said quietly, "You're still you without this." Her silver eyes locked on his, and something unspoken passed between them. Then, without another word, they both rose, ready to move before the enemy could trap them. The stand together. The hum of the search drone grew louder, bouncing off the tunnel walls like a warning. Aaron motioned for Lysara to stay behind him, but she shook her head. Even weakened, there was steel in her eyes. "I fight," she whispered, her voice firm despite the strain. He didn't argue. There wasn't time. They moved deeper into the tunnel until the shadows swallowed them. The flicker of a red scanning light cut through the darkness ahead, sweeping slowly across the walls. Aaron raised his rifle, waiting. The drone floated into view. Sleek, black, with a spinning core that glowed faintly blue. It paused, its sensors locking onto them. The high-pitched alarm that followed was deafening. From the echo above came the sound of boots hitting metal. Soldiers were dropping into the tunnels, weapons ready. The first shot came fast. Aaron ducked, firing back. The muzzle flash lit the walls in sharp bursts of light, revealing armored figures closing in from both sides. Lysara crouched low, grabbing the power cell she'd taken earlier from the drone wreck. In one motion, she slammed it into the broken sidearm on the ground, forcing it to spark to life. A sharp grin crossed her lips. The kind only a warrior wears. She fired, the blast punching a hole through the nearest soldier's chest plate. Aaron's eyes flicked to her for a moment, impressed, before he turned back to cover her flank. They moved as if they had fought together for years. He'd fire to drive enemies into her line. She'd take them down without hesitation. She covered his blind spots. He shielded her from incoming fire. The trust was instant, born not from orders, but from survival. One soldier tried to flank them from above, climbing a side wall. Aaron swung his rifle up and dropped him with a single shot. Lysara didn't miss a beat, stepping over the body to kick another soldier's weapon away. For a moment, the tunnel felt like theirs, their ground, their fight. But more shadows moved at the far end. Too many. Aaron's magazine clicked. Empty. Lysara glanced at him, breathing hard. Then we end it together, she said, her tone fierce. He nodded once. They took position side by side in the center of the tunnel. Enemy fire rained down, sparks flying as it struck the walls. Aaron reloaded fast, Lysara firing without pause. The enemy pushed forward, but they didn't break, not an inch. By the time the last soldier fell, the air was thick with smoke and the metallic tang of spent ammo. Aaron lowered his rifle slowly, glancing at Lysara. Her chest rose and fell quickly, but her eyes, they burned with something other than battle heat. Neither spoke. There was no need. From somewhere above, the distant thrum of more ships began to build. The fight wasn't over. Not yet. The promise beyond war. The tunnel fell quiet except for their breathing. Smoke drifted in thin ribbons, curling toward the cracks in the ceiling. Aaron's hands were steady on his rifle, but his heart was pounding like a war drum. Lysara leaned against the wall, her weapon still in her grip, though her arms shook from exhaustion. Then came the deep, pulsing hum of engines above. Evac ships. Aaron knew the sound well. It meant his people were here. Relief washed over him, but it was followed by something else. A weight in his chest he didn't want to name. Through a gap in the tunnel roof, a bright beam of light pierced the darkness. A voice crackled over comms. Captain Vey, report. Aaron hesitated before answering, his eyes on Lysara. I have one survivor, he said slowly. There was a pause, then the voice replied, bring them up, but be advised. Enemy combatants are to be secured for transfer. He helped Lysara toward the lift platform that had descended from the evac ship. Her steps were unsteady, but her head stayed high. Soldiers above waited with weapons ready, their expressions cold when they saw her. One of them stepped forward. She's a high-value prisoner. Hand her over. Aaron didn't move. She's not a trophy, he said firmly. The soldier frowned. Orders are orders, Captain. Aaron's grip on Lysa. Ra's arm tightened, not in force, but in silent refusal. She's alive because I made a choice. And I'm not letting that choice be dishonored. Lysara's eyes softened in a way he hadn't seen before. In the middle of all the smoke, blood, and noise, there was a fragile stillness between them. She stepped closer, her voice low enough for only him to hear. If we meet again, she whispered, it will not be as enemies. The soldiers pulled her away then, their grip firm but not cruel. Aaron didn't fight it. He only watched as she was led up into the ship. For a brief moment, she looked back. Their eyes met. No words, just the weight of everything they'd survived together. The platform rose, carrying her into the bright light. Aaron stood in the tunnel's shadow until the last echo of engines faded. The war would go on, but somewhere out there, a promise now existed between two soldiers from opposite worlds, a promise the galaxy wasn't ready for.